So we begin this lecture on mathematical properties of Navier-Stokes equations, and a topic which is closely connected to that is the requirement of boundary and initial conditions. So our learning objectives in this lecture are understanding the mathematical nature of Navier-Stokes equations that we have just derived in the last lecture, primitive variables in primitive variables for incompressible homogeneous constant property flow model. And the second important objective is what are there possible alternate formulations of this model, incompressible homogeneous constant property model. So I move ahead with this introductory idea of what are the learning objectives of today's lecture. Right, so let us start by examining mathematical properties of Navier-Stokes equations, and from those mathematical properties we'll try to understand the intimately connected issue of boundary conditions. So the most commonly exploited model of flow, which applies to a wide variety of flows or dealing with the two most commonly occurring fluids, air and water, in most technological applications. So incompressible homogeneous constant property flow model. So I don't need to repeat that again and again. This is already well established in my last lectures. So these are the governing equations, of course, in primitive variables, the Navier-Stokes equations that we call them. Now let's, if you pay attention to the terms that have been underlined and the message that I'm trying to convey by underlining these terms is, let's try to examine which of these terms are linear in character and which are non-linear terms. So starting from the left, which is the inertia term, so the local acceleration term del v del t, obviously it's a first order partial derivative and it's perfectly linear. And if you now come to the convective acceleration term v dot del v, this is a non-linear term. Why it is not linear? Because the unknown function, that is the velocity, that is occurring as a product of itself and its derivatives. Okay, so whenever you have a function, like for example if I have y as function of x, and in a differential equation I get terms where either dy by dx is having some power raised to the power which is different from 1, or I have terms which are products of the type y into dy by dx. So I have products of y and its derivatives. So in the same context, this convective term represents product of velocity gradients and velocities themselves. So that's why this is a non-linear term. Now coming to the right hand side, the flow variables are occurring in the pressure force and in the viscous force. Of course, assuming that body forces are not dependent on any flow variable. If they are, for example, if you remember, I had talked about some electrically charged fluids moving in electric and magnetic fields. So in that case, the Lorentz force, which is the body force, would depend on the fluid velocities. But if you are just considering gravity as the body force, which is the most common body force in most flows, then it won't depend on any fluid flow variable. So if we examine the pressure force term, here again only del p del x, del p del y, those type of derivatives are occurring. So gradient of pressure, by now you are very familiar how you write them in Cartesian or cylindrical forms. So it's a perfectly linear term because you have just the derivative occurring there and no powers of the derivatives or any other non-linearity. The same story is with the viscous force term, the Laplacian of velocity vector. Here also, if you were to consider the Laplacian operator, and so you will find only second derivatives of velocity components are occurring. So the second derivative is again not having any power other than 1, and is not involved in any product with the velocities or their derivatives. So again, this is a linear term. Now to further explicitly clarify all this, I have written down these equations in Cartesian coordinate systems in for a general three-dimensional flow fields. So you can see these equations, and you can clearly see the nonlinear character of the convective terms and the linear character of all other viscous force, pressure force, and local acceleration terms. So this is the first important point that we would like to make as far as mathematical properties are concerned, that equations are not strictly linear. Okay, they contain some nonlinear terms, and as a homework I would like each one of you to the manner in which I have written the Navier-Stokes equations in Cartesian coordinates. You are requested to just use your knowledge of handling coordinate systems and the del operators and try to write these equations, Navier-Stokes equations, in cylindrical coordinates. It's a small homework. You have to do it as a self-learning exercise. In fact, some of the terms have already been expressed in cylindrical coordinates in my earlier lectures, so you can have a look at that. And the local acceleration, the convective terms, all you can obtain in cylindrical coordinates. So please do this exercise. And this is just to show you that whatever we have been observing in the Cartesian frame of reference, the same observations will be there in the cylindrical frame. The nonlinearity will come through convective acceleration term, whereas all the other terms would be linear, whatever coordinate system we choose to work with. So let's now start listing our observations one by one. So the first observation is that Navier-Stokes equations are a set of, so they are not one equation, of course, because there are four variables in this Navier-Stokes equations that we have been talking about for incompressible homogeneous constant property flows. So four unknowns हैं, तो चार equations होने चाहिए. So that's why we are saying that Navier-Stokes equations are a set of partial differential equations. So that this statement tells you what type of equations we have. So these are definitely differential equations because they involve the derivatives of the flow variables with respect to space and time coordinates, and they are not ordinary differential equations because we have partial derivatives involved, so we call them as partial differential equations. So this is the first observation. The second is that these are coupled equations. Well, what do we mean by coupled equations? The next line makes it clear. We do not have explicit equations for u, v, w and p. What is an explicit equation? For example, if you had a differential equation only for p, which did not involve any other velocity or any other term, any other unknown term, so that would have been termed as an explicit equation. A partial differential equation only in terms of u velocity, a partial differential equation only in terms of v velocity, no other flow variables. So those equations would have been explicit equations. But instead, what we are seeing, the Navier-Stokes are coupled equations. That means when you look at them, you have not just one flow variable occurring in those equations, but it's a mixture. Okay, all other types of flow variables are occurring in the same equation. For example, if we take the continuity contains all the three velocity components u, v, w, but doesn't contain pressure. Now if you look at the x momentum, y momentum and z momentum equations, you have pressure as well as all the three velocity components present in these equations. So these are all coupled type of equations. Well, what does it mean when we say coupled? इसका physical implication क्या है? solution of each, mathematical implication I should say, the solution of each variable influences the other. Why it influences? Because if the equation was explicit, let's say for u or v, then its solution would hardly influence. If all the variables had explicit equations, then all the variables would be solved independent of each other, right? And their solutions would not influence the solution of the other variable. But when you have coupled equations, then solution of each variable influences the other. Or in other words, equations have to be solved simultaneously or as a system of equations, है ना? जैसे कि अब वो आप algebraic equations का एक common example मैं यहाँ दे सकता हूँ. I can give an example of algebraic system of equations. So for example, you have three unknowns x1, x2, x3, and you are already familiar that you can write them in matrix form, linear system of algebraic equations. So since equations there also are coupled, each equation has got the other variables present, not just x1 or x2 or x3. So you need to solve them simultaneously or taken together. So that is the scenario with Navier-Stokes equations also, right? So the third observation is the momentum equations have a nonlinear term, as I showed earlier. So momentum equations have a nonlinear term, and where is the nonlinearity lying? In the convective acceleration. So now this nonlinearity is what is the real challenge which is posed in these equations as far as mathematical aspects are concerned. In fact, it is because of this nonlinear term we have extremely limited analytical solutions. I hope you understand analytical solutions. Analytical solution किसी differential equation का, जैसे कि आप you have learned in your mathematics courses, when you solve a differential equation and you get a solution in the form of a closed function, okay, so that is what is meant by analytical solution. तो अगर आप Navier-Stokes के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात करें तो if you can solve u, v, w, p as functions of x, y, z and t, then I would call them as analytical solutions. Now because the equations are non-linear, we have very limited mathematical you can say tools available to obtain analytical solutions for such kind of nonlinear partial differential equations. So nonlinearity gives rise to these issues, very limited analytical solutions. In fact, we'll be discussing them in our next unit after completing this unit. And also much of the mathematical difficulty associated with solving Navier-Stokes equations and also complexity in the fluid behavior, you will learn as you go along in fluid mechanics, this course as well as any other course at in future or at advanced levels, that much of the mathematical difficulty and complexity in fluid behavior, it arises out of this nonlinear character. So this nonlinear is very significant as far as fluid mechanics is concerned. Right. Now come to the that connection that I was trying to establish with the boundary condition requirements and all. Highest order derivatives. Let us pay attention to highest order of the derivatives that we observe in the Navier-Stokes equations. Now if you notice the Navier-Stokes equations may as far as derivatives with respect to space coordinates are concerned, x, y or z, we find that the highest order of derivative is 2 or second order in space for velocity components. This is what I have written. Second order means आपका highest order जो derivative है with respect to space coordinates, that has an order of 2, है ना? Second derivative is occurring. I have written it as an example in the red below. Now once we switch from space to time, then we find that the highest order derivative with respect to time that we observe in Navier-Stokes equations has an order of 1. So it's first order in time for velocity components. So we find that as far as velocity variables are concerned, The highest order in space is 2 and the highest order in time is 1. Right. When we switch to pressure, we find that there are no time derivatives, so we don't have to consider any order of derivatives of pressure as far as time is concerned. Only space derivatives are there for pressure, and the highest order that is observed of those derivatives is again 1. So it's first order in space for pressure. Now, once we observe these orders of various variables with respect to space and time, we can connect it to implications on boundary and initial condition requirements. How we can do it? I've written a statement, you can read it along. In obtaining particular solutions to ordinary differential equations. ये मैं इसलिए ordinary differential equations की यहाँ बात कर रहा हूँ because you are possibly you haven't done any course in partial differential equations, so you are not yet familiar as far as the mathematical aspects of partial differential equations are concerned. However, that is not a worry for us. The background that we have for ordinary differential equations, and let me tell you, most of the time the partial differential equations are solved by converting them into ordinary differential equations. So ordinary differential equations, whatever knowledge you have, that is good enough to start this discussion that we are having. So we already know that in case of ordinary differential equations, if I want to find a particular solution of an ordinary differential equation, I am not talking of the general solution, right? I am talking of a particular solution. So then I require some knowledge of some information of the unknown function. Okay. Now, because I need to determine those constants that are appearing in the general solution. Now, we know that if you know the order of the ordinary differential equation, you can readily say that in the general solution I will get as many number of arbitrary constants. We have learned this right from class 12th onwards when we were first taught about differential equations. For first order differential equations, you get an arbitrary constant in the general solution. For second order differential equations, you get two constants, two arbitrary constants in the general solution, and so on. So it means that the number of arbitrary constants then determines the number of conditions you require to determine them. And in fact, you require as many conditions. So it means that order of equations, as far as ordinary differential equations are concerned, order of equations is always equal to number of conditions required on the variable. Okay, so that we can write down a particular solution. So a similar requirement, जैसा कि आप ordinary differential equations में जानते हैं, a similar requirement exists for the partial differential equations. What is that? The only difference is that the order of the equation is associated with each independent variable, because you are dealing with a partial differential equation. और जैसा नेवियर-स्टोक्स में हमने देखा कि हमारे पास इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल्स कौन से हैं, फ्लो वेरिएबल्स तो हमारे पास u, v, w, p हैं, but they are all dependent on how many independent variables? The space coordinates and time, right? X, y, z and t in the most general three-dimensional framework. So that means that now, since it's a partial differential equation, it will have orders with respect to each independent variable. तो जिस इंडिपेंडेंट के वेरिएबल के रिस्पेक्ट में जो भी ऑर्डर है, हमें उतनी ही कंडीशंस चाहिए होंगी उस वेरिएबल में टू हैव अ पर्टिकुलर सॉल्यूशन ऑफ द पार्शियल डिफरेंशियल इक्वेशन. दैट इज द की, that is the similarity between partial differential equations and the ordinary differential equations. मैं फिर से रिपीट करूंगा, ordinary differential equation में the independent variable is only one. So जो भी ऑर्डर है डिफरेंशियल इक्वेशन का, you need as many conditions on the dependent flow variable, of course, क्योंकि आपका एक ही independent variable है. Partial differential equations will have two or more than two independent variables on which the dependent variable will be a function of. So you need as many conditions as the order of the partial differential equation with respect to each of the independent variables. That means जैसे u velocity है, तो अभी हमने देखा, नीचे हम समराइज भी करेंगे कि u velocity का जो जब आप देखेंगे प्रेजेंस नेवियर-स्टोक्स में, तो हाईएस्ट ऑर्डर डेरिवेटिव्स जो अकर कर रहे हैं स्पेस में वो सेकंड ऑर्डर है. तो x में भी 2 है, y में भी सेकंड ऑर्डर तक जा रहा है, z में भी सेकंड ऑर्डर जा रहा है. सो इट मीन्स दैट इसके पर्टिकुलर सोल्यूशन में यू नीड 2 कंडीशंस फॉर x डायरेक्शन, 2 कंडीशंस ऑन u फॉर x, 2 conditions for u on y, 2 conditions for u on z. तो अकेले u ही के लिए 2 along x, 2 along y, 2 along z, इस तरह की conditions का requirement आएगा. Okay, so for each flow variable you have to see what is the highest order derivative with respect to a particular independent variable. And once that is determined, then that determines the number of conditions that you need with respect to that independent variable for the particular dependent variable. That is the idea. Now you will, I will give you a chance to clear this up more when I take you down to a table that I have made, and it will make it very clear. So thus we can summarize the order of Navier-Stokes equations. तो अब हमें क्या करना है कि नेवियर-स्टोक्स इक्वेशन का ऑर्डर को समराइज कर लेते हैं फॉर ईच डिपेंडेंट फ्लो वेरिएबल u v w p, and not only for each flow variable but with respect to each independent variable x, y, z and t, so that we can write down the maximum number of boundary and initial conditions required for obtaining particular solutions. So this is the importance of this highest order derivative observation on the set of partial differential equations that we have, Navier-Stokes equations. So if you now look at the table that I have made, I have these u, v, w velocities and pressure on my left in the form of rows, and then columns are for the space coordinates and time independent variables. So x, y, z and t. Now below each coordinate space or time, I have written what is the highest order for that particular flow variable. So if you look at u velocity, the order for all 3 space coordinates x, y, z is 2, whereas with respect to time the order is 1. So it means that how many boundary conditions are needed for u velocity alone? 2 for x, 2 for y, 2 for z, and 1 initial condition is needed for time. Okay, as far as u velocity is concerned. Now the same is actually, the scenario is same for the other 2 velocity components, v and w velocity. So that's why I have just given the same continuation symbol there. Okay, so I have not written it again and again. Whatever is written for the u velocity, the same can be just repeated for v velocity and w velocities. Now coming to pressure as the variable, there we find that with respect to all the 3 space coordinates the order is 1. So technically we only require 1 boundary condition for pressure in the Navier-Stokes equations that we are considering. So but 1 boundary condition per space coordinate for all space coordinates x as well as y as well as z. So if you count them in totality, they would become 3, but it's better to count them individually for various independent variables x, y, z and t. So this I hope I am making myself clear as far as what is the connection between highest order derivatives of various flow variables in the Navier-Stokes equations and what is the implication on requirement of boundary and initial conditions for the different flow variables. Okay, so this is one fourth observation which was over now, highest order derivatives observation. Now we come to the towards the end, the last observation that I want to discuss at length. Now there are some ways of re-expressing these Navier-Stokes equations, or there are what I call some alternate formulations of the same incompressible homogeneous constant property flow model that we are talking of. तो मॉडल नहीं बदल रहे हैं, मॉडल वही है, बट उसी के कुछ ऑल्टरनेट फॉर्मुलेशंस देख रहे हैं. ऑल्टरनेट फॉर्मुलेशन से मीनिंग ये है कि वॉट एवर प्रिमिटिव वेरिएबल नेवियर-स्टोक्स इक्वेशंस दैट वी हैव सीन, we can slightly play around with them or tweak them into some different forms. Okay, that is what the idea is. So the first possible alteration that I can make to these equations is under the specific or special case of conservative body forces. Now in physics you have learned about these kind of forces. In general, a conservative force field is a type of force field in which the work done associated with the force field is independent of the path taken by the particle. Okay, so it means that work done is a point function, not a path function. ये हमने फिजिक्स में पढ़ा हुआ है. अब इस सब का जो मैथमेटिकल आउटकम है या इम्प्लीकेशन है हमारे केस में, फ्लूइड्स के केस में, वो ये है कि अ बॉडी फोर्स इज कंजर्वेटिव. ओके, अ बॉडी फोर्स इज कंजर्वेटिव इफ द कर्ल ऑफ दैट बॉडी फोर्स फील्ड इज जीरो और वैनिशेस. ओके, अगर ऐसा होगा तो वी कैन प्रूव दैट द वर्क डन एसोसिएटेड विद दिस बॉडी फोर्स ऑन एनी फ्लूइड पार्टिकल वुड बी independent of the path taken by the particle and only be function of the starting and the end point of the trajectory of the particle. तो वो हम यहाँ proof नहीं लेके आ रहे हैं और I leave it for the students to try themselves and maybe you can discuss in the class forum, that's all. So I can provide you that proof also, but right now हमारे लिए वो इतना important नहीं है, हमें digress करना पड़ेगा अपने main idea say, so that's why I have not brought it here. So we can take it as a established thing that a body force is conservative if del cross Bm is 0, or mathematically speaking curl of that body force field intensity is 0. So now I can take advantage of a vector identity which you can readily see in your identity sheet, that curl of gradient of phi is always 0. So whatever phi you choose, phi एक स्केलर फंक्शन है, तो अगर एक कोई भी स्केलर फंक्शन ले लिया जाए और उसका ग्रेडियंट लेके फिर लास्ट में कर्ल, इफ आई टेक द कर्ल ऑफ दैट, देन दिस इज आइडेंटिकली जीरो. आइडेंटिकली जीरो मीन्स दैट इट होल्ड्स फॉर एनी फाई, है ना, कोई स्पेशल फाई के लिए जीरो नहीं है, एनी स्केलर फंक्शन पे ये आइडेंटिटी अप्लाइज. ओके, सो now I can connect the conservative body force and use this identity to say that if the body force is conservative, since del cross Bm is 0, so I can express Bm as gradient of a force potential. Okay, now let me tell you कि ये नया नहीं है. I can relate some examples from physics, that classical physics that you already know. For example, जब आप gravitational field की बात करते हैं, body force field gravity की अगर है, तो उस केस में आप एक gravitational potential भी उससे associate करते हैं. तो वो potential ये exactly ये जो phi b यहाँ लिखा जा रहा है body force potential, ये वही potential है. Okay, and same is the story with the in electrostatics. So if you have stationary charges, they have some electric field, right? So that electric field is also conservative, and in that case also you talk of a electrostatic potential. So again the electrostatic potential and the electric field are again related by a similar relation what we have written here. So what I am trying to say is that if body force is conservative, then it can be expressed as gradient of a scalar function or a scalar field, okay, which is basically known as a body force potential. So I am denoting this phi b as phi b. Okay, so in the Navier-Stokes equations, the conservative body forces can be combined. अगर body forces conservative हैं तो आप उनको फिर pressure forces के साथ combine कर सकते हैं. Why? Because you can see that rho bm minus grad p, which is the body and the pressure force appearing in the Navier-Stokes equations. Now I can write the body force field vector bm as gradient of phi b, and so I can finally write the term as minus gradient of p minus rho naught phi b. So it means that the pressure and the body force potential, they are combined together to generate a effective or a motion pressure. Okay, so we call this quantity P minus rho naught phi b as a effective or a motion pressure. So some of the books call them as effective pressure, some books mention it as motion pressure. So I am trying to use both the terminologies so that students don't confuse themselves when they read literature from various sources. Now consider the example of gravity. Okay, मैं अब यहाँ exemplify भी करना चाहूँगा. So let us consider the example of gravity, which is a conservative body force. So to write the potential, you need to consider some coordinate and the gravity vector alignment. So let's take the z coordinate to be going let's say upwards, and gravity, as we know, is downwards. So body force per unit mass Bm vector acting on any particle is simply minus gk cap, because z is upward, so k cap is upward. So the vector representation of this body force per unit mass acting on any particle would be minus gk. And if I were to respect the relation Bm vector is equal to gradient of phi b, then phi b should be defined as minus gz, because if I take phi b as minus gz, then Bm will be equal to gradient of phi b, because if you take gradient of phi b, then you get back the term minus gk cap. So that's why this body force potential minus gz is the correct representation of the body force field Bm equal to minus gk cap, right? So what it tells me that if I am dealing with gravity, which is a conservative body force, then I can write my motion pressure or effective pressure as P minus rho naught phi b, and since phi b is minus gz, it finally comes out as P plus rho naught gz. Okay, so it means that if I am dealing with conservative body forces, I don't need to consider pressure and body forces as separate forces. I can just for the sake of convenience, I can combine them into a single motion pressure or effective pressure force, and this is how we can do it. And so this is actually quite useful when we are dealing with flows in which both forces are influencing, gravitational forces as well as pressure forces. So it offers some mathematical advantage, okay, when we don't have to deal with them independently. Right, now so finally, if you combine them together, you can write the Navier-Stokes equation as the left hand side is unaffected, and you notice on the right hand side there is no body force now. Okay, but where is it? It's not that I have removed it. It is actually present in this motion pressure gradient term. So minus gradient of not thermodynamic pressure but motion pressure, and since motion pressure already takes care of both the things, the thermodynamic pressure and body force, so it's actually there, but the role is not considered to be different from each other. So that's why role wise they are combined into a single force. Okay, now notice one thing, why we are calling it as motion pressure. Okay, trying to justify that. So notice that for a fluid at rest, okay, for a fluid at rest, velocity terms are all zero. So if you, since the Navier-Stokes equations applies for any state of fluid motion, so it does also apply to fluid at rest also, right? So if I take velocity as zero in this Navier-Stokes equations, I will get the interesting statement that minus gradient of motion pressure is zero, or simply gradient of motion pressure is zero at all points for a fluid at rest. So what does it mean? That this quantity motion pressure is a type of force, that says that its gradient exists only for the case of fluid motion. That means ये जो पोटेंशियल है, मोशन प्रेशर जिसको हम कह रहे हैं, फोर्स पोटेंशियल, ये इस तरह का फोर्स पोटेंशियल है कि ये कांस्टेंट होगा अगर फ्लूइड स्टेशनरी है, और अगर फ्लूइड मूव कर रहा है तभी इसका एक ग्रेडियंट बनेगा, राइट? दैट इज व्हाट इज द implication. So that's why we attach the word motion to its name, okay? That its gradient only exists for the case of fluid motion. This is the reason for calling it as motion pressure. So this is the roughly the end of this alternate formulation that we can have for conservative body forces. So as I mentioned earlier, this approach of combining conservative body forces with pressure is useful when both forces are involved. Now when the flow is there can be a situation that the flow is driven by gravity alone, okay? So there is no thermodynamic pressure gradients which are influencing the flow field. So when the flow is driven by gravity alone, this approach is not very useful, because although it is valid, you can still use it, but it's not very useful because you don't have to pressure and body forces, both of them are not present to influence the flow, only gravity is there. So अगर gravity ही खाली है तो फिर उसको combine करने का कोई sense नहीं बनता है, and you can retain it as an independent force term in the Navier-Stokes equations, right? Now this is one side of the story as far as conservative body forces and their alternative treatment in the Navier-Stokes equations is concerned. Now there is another very interesting possibility with the primitive variable Navier-Stokes equations that we have. We can eliminate pressure from Navier-Stokes equations, and so this is something very interesting. You can basically eliminate one of the variables from the Navier-Stokes equations, and you can get a new kind of a system of equations which will involve only velocity and vorticity, okay? So if I eliminate pressure from Navier-Stokes equations that I have already seen incompressible homogeneous constant property flow के, तो उसमें से मुझे नए set of equations मैं create कर सकता हूँ, बना सकता हूँ. I can make some new equations. These equations will then involve not just velocity but vorticity. So velocity and vorticity would be the new flow variables in those equations if I eliminate pressure. So that's why we call it as the velocity vorticity formulation, okay? At this stage I would not like to I would just like to give you the idea rather than going into the merits and demerits of this formulation that can be deferred for some later stages in your learning in fluid mechanics as far as various courses in fluid mechanics is concerned. So let us move ahead with the process of showing you how we can eliminate pressure and obtain the velocity vorticity formulation. Now we have the momentum equation in the Navier-Stokes equations, which is written like this, and now consider the following identities that are well known identities in vector calculus. So वो आपकी जो identity sheet है उसको आप you can keep it in front and you can observe these identities that I have written. So I have written three identities. एक identity gradient of dot product of two vector functions a dot b, and on the right it comes out as this combination of terms, and then I have the already that I have discussed this identity that the curl of gradient of a scalar function is 0, and I have another identity which is del cross a. So it's like taking the curl operation twice on the vector a, some vector a, vector function. So this is equal to gradient of divergence of a minus Laplacian of a. So all these identities I am just borrowing from the same source which I have given you, the sheet of mathematical identities and theorems from vector calculus. So these identities are very useful. So for example, if I use the first identity and the third identity, पहली और तीसरी identity को अगर use करता हूँ और उसमें मैं ये जो आपका जो a और b जो मेरे वेक्टर फंक्शंस हैं, both of them I take equal to the fluid velocity. I can take them to be equal also. Okay, in these identities there is no restriction whether a and b cannot be same. Okay, so I'm taking this luxury and I'm using velocity vector as the vector functions in these first and the third identities. So if I look at the first identity, if I choose a and b as v, then the left hand side is simply gradient of v square, because v dot v is v square. And then I have these terms on the right, so they combine to give me a term like this, twice of v dot del v plus v cross del cross v. Now del cross v, immediately a bell should ring in your mind. What is del cross v? It is vorticity vector. So I write it as v cross omega. Okay, and then I take the factor 2 on the left hand side, because 2 is just a constant, so it can be conveniently written as gradient of v square by 2. V square by 2 is nothing but kinetic energy per unit mass of a fluid particle. So this is the physical importance of this term. So the term is gradient of this kinetic energy per unit mass of a particle. So gradient v square by 2 becomes equal to v dot del v, the convective acceleration, plus v cross vorticity vector. So this is an interesting result in fluid mechanics, and it is very commonly you can say it is very exploited, very commonly exploited and used. So we can always replace the convective nonlinear acceleration term in the linear momentum equation in the Navier-Stokes equations and write it as a combination of gradient of kinetic energy per unit mass and the cross product of velocity and vorticity. So this is important. And the third identity, if I use velocity vector for A, then I will get on the left hand side del cross V. So del cross V is again vorticity vector, and here on the right side, so left side पे del cross omega हो जाएगा, right side पे gradient of divergence of V. Now immediately divergence of V, because we are dealing with incompressible flow, is 0. So minus Laplacian of the velocity, that is the only term. तो ये जो फर्स्ट और थर्ड आइडेंटिटीज मैंने यूज की, यहाँ पे मैं इसको लीनियर मोमेंटम इक्वेशन में इनको सब्स्टिट्यूट कर सकता हूँ. Substitution for what? Substituting for the convective acceleration and the viscous force term del square V. So the momentum equation can be sort of re-expressed or expressed as rho naught local acceleration plus, you can see the presence of two terms now for the convective acceleration, as v dot del v is equal to gradient of v square by 2 minus v cross omega. So minus v cross omega is the same as plus omega cross v, because you know the cross product, if you switch the order, then the minus minus is introduced. So minus v cross omega becomes omega cross v. So that's why I've written in black gradient of v square by 2 plus omega cross v. So this is the left hand side as far as Navier-Stokes linear momentum is concerned equation. Right hand side में viscous force की जगह we can simply write del square v is replaced by minus del cross omega. So this is the linear momentum, alternate form of the linear momentum equation. So we can write it in this manner just by using some vector identities. Now to eliminate pressure, because अभी तीन आइडेंटिटी में से दो यूज हुई हैं, बीच वाली को यूज करना है, del cross gradient of phi is 0. So I can eliminate pressure because pressure force is having the mathematical form gradient of P. So if I take the curl operation on both the sides, that means all the terms of the equation are involved in curl operation, then del cross gradient of P would be 0. So it will be eliminated. That is the idea. Why we are taking the curl on both sides? So that I can eliminate the pressure term. So if I take curl on both the sides, then left hand side appears to be like this: del cross the local acceleration term plus del cross gradient of v square by 2. So again, gradient of v square by 2 means v square by 2 is a scalar, right? So gradient of scalar and involved in a cross product with del, so curl of gradient of a scalar. Okay, so this term is again 0, and of course del cross omega cross v, we cannot do anything right now, so leave it as it is. And on the right, del cross bm, let's not assume the body force as conservative, because if it was conservative, then del cross bm would again become 0, but since we are working in general, trying to show you how we can eliminate pressure, whether body force is conservative or not, so let's retain this term, and pressure is automatically eliminated by the second identity, del cross gradient phi is 0, and last term obviously is minus mu naught del cross omega. Okay, now we can again use some identities. What are those identities? From your sheet you can see them, del cross a cross b and del cross a. ये दोनों आइडेंटिटीज को हम यूज कर सकते हैं शीट से, और यूज करके वी कैन सी हाउ वी कैन राइट दीज टर्म्स, del cross omega cross v and del cross omega. Okay, so del cross omega, ये वही है थर्ड आइडेंटिटी जो लेफ्ट साइड पे लिखी हुई है, उसी का यूज कर रहा हूं मैं, del cross a, with the difference that a becomes omega. So you can see there are a lot of terms which are going to 0 on the right side. So पहले वाले एक्सप्रेशन में देखते हैं, del cross omega cross v is equal to divergence of v omega. So divergence of v is 0 minus divergence of omega. So we have already shown when we were talking of vorticity, when I delivered my lecture on vorticity or fluid rotation, I had discussed this important property of vorticity vector, that it is always unconditionally divergence free. So divergence of omega, I have shown that it is always 0. That was again on the basis of vector identity. So this term is 0, and we are left with two terms on the right, v dot del omega. So that's like a convective rate of change of the vorticity vector, v dot del omega, and minus omega dot del v. Okay, so let's not bother about any physical meaning of the last term, minus omega dot del v. Just treat it as a term in the mathematical sense. So we can now use all these results, and so what we get by eliminating pressure, we get this equation. So I will recognize that rho naught, then local, because लोकल एक्सेलरेशन में जब कर्ल ऑपरेट किया तो टाइम और स्पेस ऑपरेटर्स आर इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ ईच अदर, सो कर्ल कैन बी टेकन इनसाइड. So I have del cross del v del t becoming del omega del t, plus of course I'm using the results for del cross omega cross v here. So one term I've retained here, v dot del omega, and the other term I've taken the other side. So rho naught omega dot del v, and body force term, and the viscous term. Okay, so finally I have d material derivative of I divide by rho naught also. So finally we have material derivative d dt of vorticity vector is equal to omega dot del v, first term, the second term is del cross bm, and the third term is mu naught by rho naught del square vorticity vector. So this equation is what we are seeing is the sort of, you can say, the linear momentum equation transformed in terms of vorticity by eliminating pressure. So of course for incompressible homogeneous constant property flows. So this is what I call as the vorticity transport equation. Okay, it's written on the right in red ink, vorticity transport equation. So what it tells you that the vorticity of a particle d omega dt is the time rate of change of vorticity of a particle. So it tells you how vorticity can change for a fluid particle. कौन से फैक्टर्स हैं जो एक पार्टिकल जो कि एक सर्टेन ओमेगा से अगर रोटेट कर रहा है या उसका जो रोटेशन रेट है वो उसका मेजर वोटिसिटी है, तो d omega dt means the rate of change, the instantaneous rate of change of the particle vorticity. It is possible only because of three terms. Okay, the rate of change is only contributed by three terms. The first term is omega dot del v. So we call this as the vortex stretching term. Okay, it is basically the rate of change of the spatial rate of change of velocity in the direction of the vorticity vector, because grad v is the spatial rate of change of velocity vector, and dot omega means the component along omega. Okay, the second term is the production of vorticity by body forces. So if they are non-conservative, only then cross Bm would exist and they can produce or generate vorticity. So non-conservative body forces can generate vorticity, but conservative body forces cannot produce vorticity in the fluid particles. So this is an important conclusion. Please make a note of this. I repeat, conservative body forces cannot generate fluid particle vorticity. Only non-conservative body forces can produce particle vorticity. And last is of course the Laplacian term, very similar to the Laplacian of velocity in the linear momentum equation. So this term represents the molecular sort of spreading of vorticity from one point to the other point in the flow field. So del square vorticity vector, and it is you can say having a molecular property term mu naught upon the density of the particles. So mu naught by rho naught, by the way, you already are familiar with this quantity, जो आपका earlier second year fluid mechanics course रहा होगा, उसमें इसको kinematic viscosity it is called as kinematic viscosity. आपको बताया गया होगा कि mu, which is the dynamic viscosity, if you divide by density you get the kinematic viscosity. So I have not written here kinematic viscosity, but just to show you that the coefficient of the del square omega term, which is the representing physically the spread of vorticity by molecular effects in the flow domain, this is being you can say influenced by this property mu naught by rho naught. Right. So the incompressible condition that I have, divergence of velocity is 0, this can also be used to obtain a relation between velocity and vorticity. तो ये जो एक इक्वेशन हमने बनाया है, ये vorticity transport equation, this has two variables. One is the fluid velocity and one is the vorticity. Now vorticity being a vector, it means it has three scalar components, and the equation, vorticity transport equation, is also a vector equation. So I have three unknowns and three equations as far as vorticity transport equation is concerned. But it also involves velocity. So it means velocity and vorticity must be related by some other equation also. Okay. Now using since I have the incompressibility condition on the velocity, so I can use that to obtain a relation between velocity and vorticity, okay, which is required, so that I have a complete alternate formulation which involves velocity and vorticity variables and no pressure term. So how I can do it? We know that vorticity vector is del cross V. Now if I take curl on both the sides, I get del cross omega as del cross V, which by the vector identity becomes this, and we have already seen this earlier, divergence V is 0. So I arrive at del square V, or Laplacian of vector velocity, is equal to minus del cross omega. तो ये मैंने यहाँ दोबारा एक्चुअली कर दिया है, ये मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले भी यही आपको दिखाया भी था कि जो वेलोसिटी का लप्लासियन है इनकम्प्रेसिबल फ्लो में, दैट लप्लासियन ऑफ वेलोसिटी इज सिंपली इक्वल टू माइनस कर्ल ऑफ द वोर्टिसिटी वेक्टर. तो ये जो रिलेशन है, दिस कैन बी रिगार्डेड एज the other three equations that are needed to complete the velocity vorticity formulation. Why? Because the velocity vorticity formulation has got velocity and vorticity both are vectors as the variables. So अगर दोनों vectors हैं और variables involved हैं, तो how many unknowns are there? 3 for velocity and 3 for vorticity, so 6 unknowns. So it means I need 6 equations. So जो vorticity transport equation है, that provides it's a vector equation, so it provides 3 equations, and similarly the equation which is written in on the screen here as 1, which is the relation between velocity vector and vorticity for an incompressible flow. So del square v is equal to minus del cross omega. तो यहाँ पे let me clear one doubt and which always comes into the minds of the students. Often students say at this stage that, sir, we already have a relation between vorticity and velocity, and it is the basic definition of vorticity. They say that vorticity is equal to del cross v. So why can't we use that as one of the equations? Now let me remind you that relation vorticity vector is equal to curl of v, that is actually a general relation. It applies to all flows, whereas we are dealing with a incompressible flow. So वो जो velocity पे जो condition है incompressibility की del dot v0, that is not being absorbed in this omega is equal to curl v relation. So that is why you need to absorb that and arrive at a relation. So this is the only way to do it, that you take curl on both the sides and then finally arrive at a relation by absorbing divergence v is equal to 0 in that process. So therefore this relation 1 is the proper relation for an incompressible velocity field and the corresponding vorticity field. Del square v vector is equal to minus del cross vorticity vector. So this completes the velocity vorticity formulation. These are all theoretical ideas, of course. Later on हमारा जो usage होगा और जो हम आपको demonstrate करेंगे analysis of viscous fluid flows in your course, we will not be using these formulations. Okay, conservative force body force field वाला idea will be used in solving some problems, but we will always be using the Navier-Stokes equations in primitive forms. This is just a theoretical kind of an exercise to show you that it's possible to eliminate pressure, okay, from the Navier-Stokes equations, and you get a equivalent velocity vorticity formulation. Though it appears at this stage that the number of equations have increased, okay, from 4 to 6, so it doesn't appear to be mathematically feasible. But that is a different exercise. We can always, we can always talk about it later, the feasibility of velocity vorticity formulation and under what conditions it can offer some advantages. So that's not my objective right now in this lecture, so I'm not going into those details. Okay, now to conclude all this, I make some notes on the vorticity transport equation. What are those important observations and notes? If I have 2D flows, then I know that gradient of V, this quantity, of course this is a tensor, but being a two-dimensional flow, this sort of quantity grad V, that is going to be contained only in the plane of the fluid motion, okay, because V vector is confined to a coordinate plane only, and of course its gradient or rate of changes will also be in the same plane. So if you take vorticity, however, for such flows, we have already shown this when we had talked about vorticity. You can refer back to those lectures on where we had talked of local deformation rates and rotation rates. तो vorticity मैंने बताया था वहां पर भी कि 2D flows में vorticity vector is always perpendicular to the plane of fluid motion characteristics, and it is always directed normal to the plane of motion characteristics. And so if that is the case for 2D flows, then the dot product of vorticity and grad V will always be 0, okay, as grad V will have only components in the plane, and vorticity is normal to that plane. So if I take the dot product, then the dot product will be 0. So 2D flows के लिए ये वाला term 0 हो जाता है. So जो vorticity transport equation में 3 terms were there which are shown to be responsible for rate of change of vorticity of a particle. One of them is 0. So the vorticity transport equation for 2-dimensional flows simply reads d omega dt is equal to the body force production term del cross Bm and the molecular sort of spreading term mu naught by rho naught del square the vorticity vector. Right. What happens if you have conservative body forces? Well, we have already mentioned that earlier also, that the body force generation term del cross Bm would be 0, and therefore the vorticity transport equation simplifies to this equation containing only 2 terms on the right. So with this I would like to conclude this mathematical properties of Navier-Stokes equations topic, and of course intimately connected with that is the requirement of boundary and initial conditions. Now this aspect is very important, particularly for analyzing and you can say solving any viscous fluid flow problem or analyzing any viscous fluid flow. So I would advise you to go through this lecture very carefully, as it will have a very significant impact on things to follow. Okay, thank you very much.